Hello, it's an amazing time once again, and today we are looking at functions in Python. If you have been following our videos, you discover that in the previous video we talked about data type, Python data types, and today we are looking at functions. Just before we dive right in, I'm going to show you what we are going to look at. I'll take you to Jupyter Notebook. By the way, you can do everything we're going to do now in your Visual Studio Code. Okay, but I will focus more on Jupyter Notebook, even though I'm going to show you how the code work in your Visual Studio Code. For a reason, we'll be using Jupyter Notebook since the start of this tutorial, and most people are familiar with that. And again, because of the way it is lined out, you can actually line up blocks of code, and you have this markdown, this text you can add to your code to make it explanatory. And again, we just shift enter, in no time you run your code and everything will be lined out smoothly. So I'm going to focus more on using Jupyter Notebook, even though I will show you how you can do all of this in Visual Studio Code. Today we'll look at how you can define a function, how you can create a function, how you can call a function. Then we look at parameters and arguments. A lot of people have this misconception. If both are the same, we look at the differences between parameter and argument, and how you can use number of arguments, 2 arguments, 3 arguments, in your function, and you have arbitrary arguments. Okay, that is what we're going to focus on in this video. Then I will jump right into VS Code, and I'll show you how you can do some stuffs here too. Okay, but I'll focus, like I said, I'll focus more on the notebook. So let's jump back to look at what functions are. Basically, when we talk about functions, functions are named blocks of code designed to solve a particular problem or to accomplish a specific task. If you want to take that a little further, you could say functions allow you to write code once, and then you can run them whenever you need to accomplish the same task. So in defining a function, we want to look at how you can define a function. The first line of a function is a definition marked by the keyword def. Def stands for definition. Then the name of the function is followed by a set of parentheses and a colon. It's very important. If you don't add that, that means you have not appropriately defined your function. After all of this, then you then go ahead to add the function body. We've talked about defining the function definition. Then you have the function body, which is the line of code you want to show. Okay, then after the function body, you go on to call the function. There's what we call function call, right? Then you call the function as many as much as possible. You want to have that function again and again. You keep calling that function, and it's going to show you that. So let's define a function. Okay, so this is Jupyter Notebook. Like I said, let me define a function here so that you can see. Then I'll go to VS Code and do the same. Okay, so like I said, to define a function, you go ahead to do. By the way, if you don't know how to install and run Jupyter Notebook, I'll leave the description of that video in the I'll leave the link of that video in the description so that you can know how to install Jupyter Notebook and how to use it as you follow along in this tutorial. So to define a function, you use the keyword def. All right, then the name of the function. Let's say we want our function to say this is the name of our function, greet user. Then we use a curly braces and colon, that's parentheses, and a colon to show that. Let me increase this a little. Okay, I believe you can see this now. Okay, so that is how basically you define a function. You use the keyword def, which stands for define. Then you have your function name and your parentheses and a set of, then you have your column. Basically, that is how you define a function. After your function definition, you can go on to add a comment that explains what you are going to do, but we are going to look at that later. So looking at how you create your function, to create your function, basically you can come here. So since we already know how to define a function, you use def, the function name, followed by a set of parentheses and a column. Let's take this a step further. Let's create a full-blown function. So to do that, we are going to do, like we said, we use the keyword def, then the function name, which is greet user, then a set of parentheses, then our colon. So after that, we are going to write the body, the body of the function. Okay, so to do that, let's say we want to output just a simple text using print. Then we have our set of, then we want to print out hello dev, just like that. Okay, so hello dev, that's the text we want to print out. Then we can go ahead to call our function. We go ahead to do, okay, I'll have to take this backward to go back. So to call our function, we just type the function name, greet user, then a set of our parentheses. So shift enter. So as you can see, this will print out the statement we have here. Hello dev is going to print that out. So we have a function, we define a function, then followed by a set of parentheses at the column. Then we have the body of the function. Then we go ahead to call the function. Let me just separate this so that you can see this. Okay, it's different. This is the function call, this is the function definition, then this is the body, the function body. Okay, like I said earlier, let's just quickly let me show you how you can go ahead to do this in VS Code before we continue. Okay, so if I have this, I've created a file, so I could go ahead to do the same def, then I'll define my function, the same thing, greet user, then I'll have that set of parentheses and column, then I'll print out just the same string of text, hello dev. Okay, just like so. Then I'll go ahead to call my function using my function name, greet user. Okay, then I'll add the set of parentheses. So to do that, I'll go ahead to go to my terminal. Okay, so I'll come here and it's going to display. Then I'll go ahead to run this. You can come here to click on run here, or you can use the shortcut Control F5. If you click on that, okay, let's just do it here. All right, it's going to run that and it's going to print that hello dev. Okay, so let's continue. Like we did earlier, to call a function, we use the function name followed by parentheses. That's basically how you call your function. We have showed that in the code we did earlier. So let's look at something else. So we want to show you how you can pass information to a function. Okay, it could, that information could either be passing information to a function could either be in form of argument or parameter. So we are going to go on to look at the difference between these two. Information passed to a function, like I said, could be in the form of argument or parameter. So let me just go back here and okay, so okay, creating a function, calling a function, basically they are the same. So we just go ahead to put this here and oh, not what I want to do. Okay, so we are going to look at basically how you can pass argument to a function. So a lot of people, there's this misconception between argument or parameters. Is there a difference between both of them or are they the same? Let's see. When we talk about a parameter, basically a parameter is a variable listed inside the parentheses in the function definition. Like we have earlier, you can see what we did here. Okay, you see during this function definition, we have this set of parentheses, even though we did not pass any argument to this function. We are going to show you that. But basically, what we do here is that this parentheses help us pass argument to this function. So let's create another function. Let's create another function. Then we can go ahead to call it. And so here I'll just do greet user again. Oh, sorry, have to define my function dev greet user. Okay, so I'll have user 1, user 2. Okay, then I'll have user 3. Just this 3 set of users I'll have in the function, in this function. So after that, I'm going to use the print. Sorry, I have to put this at the end of that. So I'll do enter, then I'll use my print. So I'll go ahead to again hello dev, then I'll give a space, then I'll use the plus sign and I'll input the user I want to greet. Okay, I believe you are following. Let's say user 1. Okay, so let's say I want to greet the first user, user 1. Then I'll close this curly brace, this parenthesis. Then after that, I'll go ahead to call my function. So calling my function here, greet user, then I don't just want to call it with an empty no item in the parentheses. I want to call it with a set of names because in my function definition I indicated 3 users here. So I'll go ahead to have those users. So the first one, I'll say Paul. I'll do Paul. Okay. Then I'll do Jane. Then I'll do Joy. All right. So if I do Shift Enter, so you can see basically it's going to display Hello Dev Paul. All right. Why? Because here I indicated specifically that I want to call this first user, which is Paul. Okay. So if I go ahead to change this to user 3, what do you think is going to be what do you think will be displayed? Shift Enter. Of course, is going to be the third user. So that is not even what I want you to understand here. I want you to understand that you can pass arguments to a function, and at the end of the day, when you want to call that function, then you can pass the parameters to a function. So that is going to help us understand basically the differences between parameter and argument. So if we look at what we have here, we said a parameter is a variable listed inside the parentheses in the function definition. So if you see what we have here right now, we defined a function and we imputed some items here during the definition. So basically, this is what we called function parameter. So this is the parameter to this function. Then when we wanted to call the function, then we imputed some set of values. The names, we added some set of values here, 3 of them, which is equivalent to the number we have here. So basically, when you call a function and add some value, they are called arguments. So an argument is a value that is sent to a function when it is called. So to put that in perspective, so we could say an argument is a value basically that is set to the function when it is called. So in defining a function, you add a parameter. In calling a function, you add an argument. I believe that it helps you, clarify the differences between functions and parameters. Oh, sorry, parameters and argument. I beg your pardon. So again, let's have another function. Looking at number of arguments. Basically, if you want to call a function, basically, the number, a function must be called with the correct number of arguments. Like you have here, you can see we pass 3 arguments to this function, or parameters, like we said earlier. We pass 3 parameters to this function, and when we want to call the function, we called it with the same number, which is 3 arguments was called during the function call, which is equivalent. They are the same. So let's say here I pass 3 arguments, and in the function call, I pass just 2 arguments to this function. So Shift Enter is going to display an error. Why? Because it said this is the reason. Missing one required positional argument user theory. So for your code to work, the number of parameters you pass to a function must be the same with the number of arguments during the function call. So we have to call it with the same, so it's going to display that with the same number of arguments. So yeah, so a function must be called by the same number of arguments. To explain that further, let's have another function. Let's define another function called sum. Then we have we pass some parameters to the function num1, num2. So I'll close this up, then add our colon, then I'll print, want to print num1, num1 plus num2. Basically num2, we want to add the two numbers. So okay, let me just let me pass this inverted comma here. Okay, here let's do the same here. All right, so num1 plus num2, then I'll close this off and we go ahead to call the function using the function name, and then we are going to pass argument to this function. What argument? Let's say 5 comma 6, which is equivalent to the number of parameters we passed during the function definition. So basically 5 represent num1, and then num2 will be what? Will be 6. So if I go ahead to run this function, shift enter. Okay, basically let me remove this. These are numbers. Okay, this num1. All right, then num2, sorry about that. Num2. So then I pass the argument here. All right, so if I go ahead to do shift enter, it's going to print 11. All right, so if I go ahead to include a third number here, let's say num3. So num1 plus num2 plus num3. All right, then I go ahead to, I still leave this argument I pass during the function comma 2, but I define three parameters in the function. If I do shift enter, it's going to throw an error. You know why? Because one argument is missing, which is num3. So I believe you understand that now. So if I come here and add that argument to it, let's say 10, if I do shift enter, now it's going to work. It's going to print the sum of these three numbers. So basically, like I said earlier, a function must be called with the correct number of arguments. The number of parameters you pass in the function definition must be the same when you are calling the function. Okay, we are going to now look at arbitrary arguments. So what do we mean by arbitrary argument? Take for instance, you do not know how many arguments will be passed into your function. So what you do at that point, you are going to add an asterisk like we added here before the parameter name. So if you add that, even if you pass 100 arguments during the function call, it will still be in line with your function. You will still be correct. It's not going to throw an error. So that is what we are going to go back to our notes, our Jupyter notebook, and work that out. So let's create another function. Take for instance, we have a function called myColors. The function name is myColors, and I don't know the number of arguments that will be passed at the end of the day. So I'll just pass the parameter colors. Okay, then I'll add my column, then I'll hit enter, then I'll do print. Let's say my favorite color is, then I'll give a space, then I'll close that, then I'll use the plus sign, sorry, plus colors. Remember the parameter we passed here, the name is color. We use this asterisk because we don't know the number of argument that this function will be called with. So that's my colors. Let me just leave it at that. I'm going to show you what I'll do next. Then after that, I'll go ahead to call this function by the function name, my color. Then I'll pass some argument to this function. What are the colors? Let's say white. Okay, the next one, let's say blue. Okay, let's say red. And let's say green. I've not even mentioned my favorite color. Okay, let me just add that. Sorry. So lastly, let's say we have another color, black. Yeah, black is beautiful. All right, so I'll close that off. If you look closely, you will discover that during the function definition, we did not include all the numbers because we do not know the number of arguments that will be passed during the function call. So we just used the asterisk and we added colors. So what do I do? If I go ahead and run this, shift enter, is going to throw an error because all determined string literal at last. So what we have to do here, we want to indicate the argument, the index. So by index, I believe you understand that this is at index 0, index 1, index 2, red is in index 3, and index 4, black is index 4, the last one. So okay, let me close this up. All right, black is index 4. So for this to work, I have to call it by the correct index number. So I'll do okay, I'll come here. Let's say let's say white is my favorite color to you. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to use this square bracket. I'll do index 0 because white is at the first index. So if I do shift enter now, it's going to run. My favorite color is white. I believe you understand that. So let's say I want to change. I've changed my mind. I prefer blue now. So I'll do index 1, shift enter. My favorite color is blue. And of course, you should know that black is mine. So I have to call it by the index number, which is index 4. If I do shift enter, it's going to print that my favorite color is black. Okay. Talking about function, there are a lot of other things you should know. Probably will have another video where we'll talk about that. But just before we go for this video, just before we call it a wrap, I created a small exercise for you, to put in perspective what we have learned so far in this Python function exercise. Write a function that multiplies 5 numbers. Basically, what you just need to do, you have to define your function, have your parameters in place, and ensure that during the function call, the number of arguments in the call should be equivalent to the number of parameters during the function definition. Once you do that, this is a hint